You get one car and you like it. You don't trade it in, you don't keep upgrading it, you just leave it the way it is and you appreciate it for what it is. This has been going on since the beginning of time. It's just who we are as people. People love getting the next best thing, doing the next best thing, and just having to have a form of social status, or they just want to look cool, and whatever your reason is. It's just human nature at its finest. Nowadays, I would guess you'd call it the level of greed, or the level of, maybe it's social media putting it in front of our faces more, or maybe it's just true. When I was 18 years old, I was given a car. It was a gift from my parents, and it was a 2018 Honda Civic Si. Beautiful car. It was black. It had a limited slip front diff. You could pretty much plant it around any corner and it would stay planted. And to be honest, it is the car that taught me how to drive before I even went on a racetrack. When I was 18 years old, I didn't exactly appreciate it. It was kind of just given to me. I had developed this trend where I would own cars and I would kind of get bored of them or sick of them, and I'd feel like for some reason I deserved to have something more or better. I never really understood why. I felt like I needed to just be cool, but even if I had the best car in the world, it still wasn't good enough. Kids around me were like, oh, that's a cool car, and I'm like, it's all right. It still never made me feel good. Maybe a big reason is because I didn't buy it myself, so it just never felt like mine, so I didn't treat it as if it was mine. But it was a gift that my parents bought for me, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. Once you start to grow up a little bit and you start to learn more and more about the world around you and about yourself, and the more challenges you start to experience in life, the more you start to really appreciate things for what they are. Once I started shitting out my own ass, as time went on and I grew up and I bought my own car and I made my own payments and did my own things, there's a real appreciation that comes with it. You stick with one car and you keep it. I have no means of ever trading in my truck to get another truck, or to upgrade it, or to get another one. And quite frankly, it's because I don't care if people think that my truck isn't the good looking, most best looking truck on the planet anymore. I don't care if it's not the most expensive truck on the planet to anyone. It's reliable, it turns on, and it gets me to where I gotta go. I'm 24 now, and you would think that the natural maturity of things, of kids nowadays, the older you get, the better this gets. And it's called maturing, right? No, not right. Very wrong. Kids nowadays aren't exactly turning into adults, especially here in America. They're staying stuck as children. They're turning into their 20s, mid-20s, 30s, and it's yeah, we're still young and we still do crazy things in our 20s, but we're not exactly understanding the basic fundamentals of life yet for some reason. It's almost like the maturity level of a 24-year-old is 10 years behind where it should be. So a 34-year-old is essentially 24 now. So it's just very backwards, and I think this is affecting a lot of how people think just in general, and what's the biggest thing that kids nowadays are thinking about. It's it's a lot of it's about looking good in front of other people, and cars, I feel are the ultimate example of that. Back when I was in high school, every parent used to buy their kid a brand new car. The problem is that it wasn't just a brand new car. They kept buying them new ones every year. I went to a stupid preppy private school full of a bunch of sports kids that were there because either they were good at sports or their parents had a lot of money to be there. I had neither, and my parents wanted me to have a good education, but I sucked at sports. So I went there for 2 years and it was terrible. and I hated it, and I hated everyone there, and everyone there hated me. Whenever I would, even have a conversation with, some of these people, because I was always into cars, even like growing up, about like whenever I'd have a conversation with these people, I guess they're people now, but back then they were considered kids. So whenever I'd have a conversation with these kids growing up, their mind views on the world were always so different than mine. I always would try and like strike up a conversation about their car or whatever, and it's like, all right, they didn't really understand. It was just something their parents bought. So I was always like, all right, whatever. But I've noticed that there's a direct link with the mentality of not knowing what the fuck anything is and just taking things for granted and being spoiled and, going to all these special schools, and like, I don't know, the pattern recognition part of my brain started going off, and I'm starting to realize that particular people with this mentality have similar issues, I guess you could say. Nowadays, now that these people are grown up, I have people in their 20s and 30s asking me, saying, well, you're a mechanic, what do you recommend as a car? And it's like, well, first of all, I'm not a mechanic. Mechanics don't exist anymore. They're just glorified parts replacement people. I would say we're technicians. We're not anybody. We're just people who show up to a job and replace things. But here's my opinion. A lot of people always want something that's still new. They have cars that are from like 2018 and they're like, it's getting dated. It's like, is it though? It runs and drives. You haven't had a single problem with it other than changing your brakes and tires and doing your oil changes. But you're like, well, it's just getting old. We think it's about time. It's like, yeah, but is it really though? Is it really time, or are you just wanting to get in something new? And this is happening more often than it should, because these are people who are like getting older and don't have any money to spend, but they just want the newer thing. And it's like, why can't people just be happy with the things that they have? Like, I had a girl who had 2 kids, and she had a Yaris, and it was a 2010, but it had low miles, it was good, it ran good, and she's like, well, I want to get into something newer, She's like, what do you think about this SUV and that SUV? I'm like, they're fine, but they're expensive. Like, yeah, I know, it's expensive. Well, what's wrong with your car? Nothing, I just don't really like it. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah, but I don't really have any money to spend either. It's like, saying those two things in the same sentence kind of makes me laugh, because these people nowadays just don't make a connection in their brain that says no money equals no new car. It's like they figure out a way to financially bankrupt themselves to just get the car, just to have. And then once they have it, they like treat a car as like a handbag, whereas it's a way of life. Like, the car that you choose is a tool. It's something for you that you need to take care of the tool. It's something that gets you everywhere you need to go all the time, every day. And people just think it's just like vanity fashion item, or it's like, sometimes it is, even if you don't have an expensive one, but a majority of the time people just need cars to drive around in. And it's always funny because people like, okay, so let me give you an example. The other day, I was asked, I have this Nissan Rogue. It doesn't have any issues, but I'm looking to get another car. And it's like, well, my first thing is like, okay, well, why are you trying to get another car? Well, this one's, it's getting a little older. It's like, and I just tell them outright. My first response is like, well, then don't get rid of it. You shouldn't. Well, I do want something that's newer. It's like, well, what do you recommend that's newer? I'm like, see, my brain kind of shuts off right then and there, because it's like, I can tell you, but I have a feeling no matter what I tell you anyway, you're probably not going to do it, or you're probably not going to take my advice. I think you just want to be told that this is the best, and like, you just want me to agree with what you're saying so you can justify making like a financially crippling decision. And it's just like, and I do it because it gets to the point where so many people are asking, where I just don't want to waste time. Let you guys make the mistake and do what you want, because I feel like I've tried explaining to people like the issues. Like, whenever a new line of cars comes out. You need to wait a couple years for like the manufacturer to work out the kinks of the model, because they're just going to be full of garbage. Like I hopped in a 2024 Tacoma the other day, and the window fell off the track, and the engines are slow and lethargic, and they're crap, and they're too heavy, and they just feel terrible to drive. The accelerator pedal has no response to them. It feels like you're driving. It doesn't feel like you're driving. It doesn't feel like anything. And it's a complete lackluster, boring experience to be behind the wheel of a new Tacoma. So one of the other customers said that, he bought the last generation of the previous generation Tacoma, like the last year of the previous generation, because he wanted the last hurrah. It was a COVID car, so during COVID there was like a lot of manufacturing issues and problems. So I always recommend get a car after COVID or pre-COVID, because the reliability has seemed to have gone down due to COVID. And he's saying, yeah, this thing's crap, this thing sucks, what do you recommend I buy? And I'm like, all right, I can tell you, but you shouldn't. You should just keep what you have and deal with it, because you're going to end up spending more money in the long run. So, but back to the Nissan Rogue lady. She's like, well, I want to buy a Toyota. I said, well, here's the deal. I said, they have a lot of issues now than before. Like, you're going to be dealing with hybrid systems, and then there's going to be more extra crap that's going to go wrong. It's like you're getting yourself into a headache. It's not, you don't want the new car for the price. They just want the amenities, like the tablets in the middle and the heated seats and the heated steering wheels and all the crap. But it's just a pig with lipstick. It's still a Toyota, just with modern day shit. It's like, you got a cell phone, Like, why do you need a tablet in the center of your Toyota? Like, a Toyota is a Toyota. Why are the prices being shot through the roof, to push these cars out the door? Like Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, they're all taking this like luxury line approach. And the reason why is because they're selling super expensive cars to the small percent of Americans that can afford them, because the small percent of Americans that can't afford them don't have any money to buy them. So they're trying to sell it to the top 10% or whatever. And because it's the only way they're going to make money. But all of, poor people want to buy them because they want this like special type of status. Like, I guess this video is more for parents. If you're a parent, don't buy your kid a brand new car. Don't do like what my parents did, because I didn't learn that side of appreciation until a little later in life, when life started to kind of not go in a good direction. So don't buy your kids. A first car should always be a beater, always, every single time. And until the day that it just stops working is the day that they get another car, because there should be no reason to get another one. If it runs good and it drives good, then that's all you need, and that's it period. As long as you can get an inspection sticker on it. Like, my sister still drives her Corolla, and she's saying, well, even my sister now, she's like, well, I want to get into something newer. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to get into something newer? She has a 2007 Toyota Corolla. It's got 150,000 miles, like maybe upwards or downwards of 10,000 miles, around there. And she's like, well, I want to get another car. And I'm like, why? It's a Toyota Corolla. They last forever. It doesn't have a check engine light. Your tires are good. Your brakes just got done. Change your oil. Why? What's wrong with it? She wants like either a newer Corolla or something as like an upgrade, but it's like, no. Get your miles out of it. Imagine spending like, it's crazy. Sometimes these people are spending like $30,000, $40,000 every 2-3 years after their lease or finance, and they just keep trading them in, buying them, selling them, buying them, selling them, and they don't have the money to do it either. They just keep putting themselves in the hole to get these cars. It's insane. And for what? For a status? For a lack of appreciation of what you already have, to have the newest, latest, and greatest thing? I record these videos with my iPhone, right? When this iPhone dies, that's it. I'm not getting another one. Even people in my family are saying, the phone's broken. Right now, my speaker's broken on my phone. So people can't hear me for some reason over phone calls. And they're like, you got to get it fixed. And then they're like, oh, you got to replace the phone. You're going to try, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm going to be honest. I don't care if people can't hear me, because the reality is I probably don't want to talk to you on the phone anyway. I don't want to, and it's a good excuse when someone says they can't hear me over the phone, like, oh, I can't hear you. It's like, well, I'm going to be honest. I don't think anybody has the power that should be able to talk to anyone at any given second of any day, all the time, at every 365 days a year, until the rest of your life, till the day you die. Yeah, and it's like, well, I can't exactly like block my phone either, but once this phone dies, I'm getting a flip phone. I already started transferring all my shit over to my computer to pay bills and stuff, but I'm all set. You can keep the phone. I'm tired of spending $1,000 every couple of years, just throwing down $1,000 cash for a little square. That's you make phone calls with it and you text, and then people think that they got to get bigger and better ones because they got to stream Netflix on it more often. It's just like, listen, it's good, it's convenient, but we're actually it's luxurious, and we're super privileged, and people are wondering where all their money's going. And it's like, well, I could tell you where your money's going, but, obviously it wouldn't be the best of opinions. They'd be like, no, well, that's not true. You need a phone nowadays. It's like, well, with that mentality, it's like, just buy everything brand new, right? The refrigerator doesn't have a water dispenser in it. Oh, we got to buy one with a water dispenser because it's 2024 and we need to. More bullshit to buy means more shit we have to pay out. It's like, the more antiquated with technology we get, it means when something breaks, we're just going to have to keep forking over our money for it. People nowadays have no sense of money and how it works. Like, they just constantly love to spend and spend and spend. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I like to spend too on things that are I would consider more of a passion, because I agree, you should live life, you shouldn't die. But, when it's something that is used as like a utensil or something that has relatively no meaning, and it's not a passion. All right, back to what I was saying before. I have to be a little quiet because I don't want to wake my son up again. You can spend money on your passion. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the problem lies with just the overspending and the amount of greed that goes on with people nowadays. It's getting to the point where it's too much. Parents need to start giving their kids beater cars again, or how about not giving them a car at all? Because there's a lot of kids out there that never get a car when they're 16 years old. And even these adults, it's funny because it shows a lot of like the generational shifts of like the parents in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, on how they started to get more and more money and started buying, having more and more privileged things for their kids because of the generation that didn't have it before them. And you can see how that trickle-down effect is actually ruining the mentality of the younger people that are coming into the world. So my son's starting to wake up again, so it's all right. I'll just leave the video there, and I'll talk to you guys later.